The Knicks better hurry up and wrap up that 3 seed in the East for the playoffs. And they only have, 6 games left on the schedule. So let's take y'all to school, Knicks film school, that is, with Jonathan Macri. Jonathan, what's going on, my man? Appreciate you hopping on today.
Yeah, what's going on, Brandon? Would have liked to be coming on riding a winning streak, but yeah, for the first time in what was it, 71 games, the Knicks blew a 15-point lead. So what can you do?
All right, so let's talk about last night's game because, yeah, they jumped out to that double-digit lead over the Cavs, and Cleveland just completely opened it up in the second half and ran away with it. But let's be honest, J-Mac, I don't think anyone thought that the Knicks, without Brunson, without Robinson, was going to go in there on the second night of a back-to-back and win this game. So at least let's take away. Give us your W's in the loss.
Yeah, I mean, look, OG Anunoby, for him to come out there in the first half and, he's been playing the best basketball of his career. He had been averaging 28 points a game over the previous seven, among the league's leading scorers. He's doing so efficiently. He's driving, he's shooting the three. And for him to go out there and have his best half of this recent stretch, I think just solidifies that what we have seen lately from him is very real. And I think it's translatable to the playoffs. And I don't think it's going to be a big adjustment for him to play with Jalen Brunson once Jalen Brunson comes back. So I took some encouragement from that. And I guess the only other win for me, and you have to kind of squint to see this one, I think karl-Anthony Towns had a nice second half. He was not good in the first half. He got into foul trouble. He had 5 turnovers before halftime. He only took, I think it was 4 shots. Once OG kind of slowed down, maybe he was a little tired. You know, Cat going out there having, I think it was 18 points in the second half, more than the rest of the starting lineup combined after halftime, and doing so pretty efficiently, limiting the turnovers. He's really struggled against these sorts of switchy defenses, and I think he played well enough on his end at least that you could see that level of play if they face a Boston or a Cleveland in the playoffs. That's good enough from Towns. So that again was, I thought, encouraging.
All right, looking ahead, the magic number is 3 to clinch the 3 seed in the East. We got 6 games left on the regular season. Can't believe we're here right now. So let's
I
break
know.
this. Let's break down the rest of the schedule. You got the Hawks, the Suns, the Celtics, Pistons, Cavs again, and then they end the season with the Nets. Where do those 3 wins come from, and how important is it for this squad to be the number 3 seed in the playoffs?
I, so it's an interesting question, which I'll start answering by saying that it doesn't just have to be them winning 3 games. The Pacers, could lose, a game or two. It's any combination of Pacers losses and Knicks wins. The Pacers still have a game left in Denver. They also have 2 games left against Cleveland, although we don't really know how much the Cavs are going to be angling to win those games. I would anticipate the Pacers dropping at least 1 game. Even if they don't and they somehow finish 6-0, I think there's 3 wins left on the Knicks schedule. I think they'll have a very good chance this weekend against both the Hawks and the Suns, even if Jalen Brunson only plays in one of those games. And then you look down the stretch, how much is Boston going to be trying in that remaining game? How much is Cleveland going to be trying in that remaining game against the Knicks? And then obviously finishing the season against the Nets, who are going to be pulling out all the stops, I think, to lose the rest of their games. They'll get 3 in there somewhere. Do I think the third seed is important? I kind of do, and you could argue that for matchup reasons, it would be better to go into the Cavs side of the bracket, despite what we saw last night, as opposed to the Celtics side of the bracket. I think, we saw last year this team didn't duck the Sixers. That's not how they're built. That's not what their mentality is. I think they want to finish as good as they can. And I think there is something to being the third best team in the East. I know that's, a small consolation for a lot of people who expected them to be one of the upper echelon teams. But yeah, I think it's meaningful.
All right, so in that case, I asked Alex Strateros of Knicks Fan TV. I'm gonna ask you the same question. Would you rather the Knicks play the Bucks or the Pistons in the first round?
I think that answer is entirely dependent on Damian Lillard and his health and, what are the chances that he comes back for the postseason. I think the reporting would seem to suggest that it is a long shot that Damian Lillard comes back. Look, you can look at the Knicks Bucks matchups even when Dame was healthy and say, well, the Knicks have owned those matchups. I understand that. I'm still not sure I'd be gung ho about entering a playoff series against two of the greatest 75 players of all time. And Dame, for as much as his performance this year has kind of seemed like some empty calories, Dame time is still a thing. He's had big postseason moments. I'm not sure that's something that I would be pulling for. So if Dame was healthy, I think I would say I'd rather face the Pistons, although that would be a tough call because I have a lot of respect for Detroit. They've been one of the probably six or seven best teams in the league for about 2 months now. But I'm going to go with I'd rather face Milwaukee just because I don't think Dame is coming back, and I think they could handle that series a little bit easier.
All right, before I let you go, we all know the news that Carmelo Anthony, first ballot Hall of Famer. I've been
Yep.
watching this dude play since he was at Oak Hill Academy down in Virginia. I'm a Virginia guy myself. You're a Knicks fan. You watched this guy play for the 8 seasons he spent here. Give us your best Melo memory.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm going to be honest with you, Brandon, I think the most excited I ever was in a Knicks related Melo moment is the day that they traded for him. Because in my mind, it's like, okay, we've been waiting, since Patrick to get that guy. And, no disrespect to Amari Stoudemire, that was a big moment when Amari decided to sign here. But when Melo decided it wasn't his decision, obviously, but he kind of, we know he wanted to come here,
Yeah.
and we know his wanting to come here is what emboldened the Knicks to make that trade. I was so excited. I remember his first, the first game. It was it was a the rest of that season didn't turn out great, but it was just cool to have him in uniform. I think it's unfortunate that he never, I don't think, had a signature playoff moment. I mean, obviously, the moment against the Bulls is the one that's always going to get replayed. For me, I would probably say his best moment in uniform came against the Celtics in the 2012 NBA playoffs, where he put up, or excuse me, sorry, not against the Celtics, against the Heat in the
Yep.
2012 NBA playoffs, put up 41 points in their one win that series. I know they were already down 3-0, but it was the first playoff win that the team had gotten in a very, very long time. And he was just exceptional that game, doing all the things that he had always done. But look, like you said, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, deserves to be one of the 10 greatest scorers of all time by any metric. And it's cool that he will always be associated with this franchise because, there's not a ton of guys that are at that level that when you think of the team they played for first, you think of the Knicks. So, hats off to him.
Just think if his son gets
I,
drafted to play here as well. Wouldn't that be crazy? That'd just be a surreal moment.
it would be a full circle
Yeah.
moment, and it's cool that he's been at a lot of these games recently, going back to the playoffs last year. I was at Game 5 against the Pacers and seeing all those Knicks alumni. But here's the thing: he is kind of even the captain of that crew, amongst the retired Knicks. There is a level of respect that he engenders. Was he as good a Knick as Patrick Ewing? Well, no, because he wasn't here as long. He never made a finals. But I think if you look at how players around the league view Melo, I don't, other than the championship era Knicks, I don't think that there's another player who has played for this franchise that other NBA players view with that level of respect, and that's a really cool thing. And I just, for what it's worth, he's in the Hall of Fame now.
Yep.
I hope they retire his number,
Yep. Yep.
because he deserves it.
Yep.
I know he didn't do as much as people would have liked, but there's not that many retired numbers in the rafters, and I get all the ones that are retired, other than Ewing, played for the championship teams. I don't think that's a reason not to put number 7 up alongside those guys because he's the best until Jalen Brunson came along. At least he's the best thing that's happened to this franchise in 25 years, and he deserves to have that honor.
For sure, man. Well, we got a lot of Knicks basketball left. So, J Mac, we'll be coming back to you soon, man. Appreciate you hopping on.
Always appreciate you, Brandon. Thank you.